Dobar dan. Gospođa Jančić, gospođa Nikov, gospođa Crnokomorac i dragi prijatelji. I don't speak very good Serbian. But I want to thank you for inviting me here today. First, congratulations on this, your 12th International Conference. It was an unexpected honor for me to be invited to speak here. Also humbling. I can't tell you how intimidating it is to stand up in front of a bunch of librarians and pretend to know anything. But we are here today to discuss and learn about We are here today to discuss and learn about the intersection between libraries and information literacy in a knowledge society. So, for guidance, here's a map. I have a few comments about this map. First of all, the map that's supposed to be there isn't, because things have changed dramatically. Second, you're here, but where are you? And most importantly, where do you want to go? If you need a map to get there, start drawing it now. And if you don't need a map to get there, how about those that do? Yeah. I've been primarily a technology librarian. When I started as a librarian 16 years ago, those two terms did not mesh well. You were either a technology nerd or you were a librarian. Yeah. So I learned as I went along, always outside the library environment. I learned about computers, programming, coding, interfaces, servers, whatever I could latch onto, I learned, because there was no defined path. This is what I encountered. I also spent most of my library career being a translator between libraries and the IT people. Today, we as librarians are all expected to be a technology librarian. We need to understand both cultures. Don't panic. You're closer than you think. So I've done cataloging. Where's the catalogers here? People do cataloging? Tell me you invited the catalogers. How many people have done cataloging? Excellent, excellent. You're at the very core, catalogers are at the very core of this battle to keep libraries in the game. Today, instead of subject headings and classifications, we have metadata and big data as buzzwords. Catalogers were the first and are still the primary source and resource for library programmers, the coders, the people that create these things that are going to connect us to our communities. So, I've also been a reference librarian. Who are the reference librarians here? Awesome! Why are you way back there? You need to be up here. All I can say is, from my experience as a reference librarian, wow. You are on the front lines. You are at the very front of interacting with the public. You see firsthand what we try to use big data to only guess at. So consequently, what I am seeing is more and more programmers, library coders, are partnering with reference librarians in order to plan and roll out library-based programs or software. All right, next. IT people, systems people. You didn't invite the IT people. All right, I've done both of those. I've done the IT and the systems stuff. And the one thing I learned, the most valuable lesson is you always make friends with the IT and systems people. You invite them to lunch. You bring them cookies. And then things work out well. So we need to invite them to this table. We need to invite them for the cocktails afterwards. So I've been in both camps. But I was always a librarian first. Because libraries are the core of a knowledge society, right? And also, people are a lot more fun to interact with than computers. Am I right? Yeah. But we all need, we need them. We need the IT people. We need each other to meet today's challenges. Okay, so let's look at where we are today. There were 2 international conferences recently in this area, and I happened to go to both. Who was at the LIDA conference besides me? Okay. LIDA, Libraries in the Digital Age, started in 2000 with the theme, positioning libraries on the internet and using libraries in the internet. They were annual till 2010, and then they became a biannual conference. And this year, there was talk at the conference about whether we even needed this conference anymore, because libraries in the digital age is no longer a cutting-edge concept. We're there. We're all there. I also went to the Western Balkan Information Literacy Conference, and you see the theme here. And their conclusion was, knowledge today necessarily involves digital literacy and information literacy, because without digital literacy, there's not going to be a lot of information literacy. So, when I started in libraries, we were still using Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, Social Science Index, Index Medicus, all of those print indexes. The ones that we now have today electronically. Who still has print indexes? Anybody? And if you did, would they be up to date? No. They've gone through a transformation. And it's continuing, obviously. We know about this. 15 years ago, we were teaching researchers how to use these resources through the new media. Do you see the new media back there? Does everybody see the new media back there? The computer? This picture was taken 10 years ago in Queens Law Library, New York. Today, that computer is taking up a lot. There are more computers and not as many books. Yeah. So then along came Google. So do we still need to teach information literacy today? I mean, there's Google, right? And do I hear the ever-present chorus of librarian voices saying, yeah, we know how effective those search engines are not for finding authoritative, high-quality results? So yeah, we still need information literacy. We need exactly what my colleague was talking about. But do we also need to teach digital literacy as part of information literacy? Okay, so there's a general assumption that digital natives don't need training. Does everybody know what a digital native is? Mm-hmm. This is a digital native. They start real young. They start from when they're babies. By the time they're that age, this is my oldest son. He's a digital native. But we have a moving target here. New devices, new interfaces, new ways of accessing data and information? I say yes. Digital literacy will always, always be a training need, just like information literacy. And I have an example to demonstrate why. 20 years ago, there was a need to teach people to use computers just to be able to access the computer catalog, the OPAC. And then online resources arrived. And 14 years ago, as I was developing training materials to bring library patrons up to speed to be able to use these resources, I discovered digital refugees. Does everybody know what a digital refugee is? Who knows what a digital refugee is? Okay. These are not digital refugees. A digital refugee is somebody who has excluded themselves from anything, any part of this revolution. So they came to the library and said, they come to you eventually because they have to use computers. So they came and I discovered digital refugees. Who is teaching computer classes in your libraries today? Okay. Do you have people who have not used computers before? What's the first obstacle?
Mouse?
The mouse. The mouse, yes. So 12 years ago, when I encountered these people, there had been a fairly meager attempt at tutorials. I found them all. They were bad. So I initiated development of an online mousing tutorial. Has anybody seen this? Used it? Okay. Who's used it? Who's seen it? Okay. So this was something I directed development on at my library. We made it offline and online. I sent out a message on the PubLib. Libraries latched onto it instantly, all over the world. But they very quickly moved beyond libraries. Who else would have used this? Anyone? Any guesses? Schools. We found out very shortly after this went online and we made it available, the entire country of Spain had taken it, translated it, modified it slightly, and put it in their schools. So, because it turns out it's a great way to teach children how to use a mouse, to learn how to use a computer. Because yes, kids are not born knowing this. They need to learn. By 2006, I could do a fairly reliable search and see who is using this tutorial or a version of it. Today, I can't do that. I know it's out there. People are using it. But there's a proliferation of devices that don't use a mouse. What used to be required a few years ago is now an option. So, training for access. Training for access is always going to be needed because the device changes. There's another aspect to our position in this knowledge society. We're obviously tied to digital literacy and information literacy because we, along with museums and other cultural institutions, are archives of knowledge. Our resources are not only print, they're now digital. And we're the ones creating those digital content because we've got the bulk of the print content, right? Okay, so Google taking the initiative with their bold digitization projects was kind of a sad reflection on the reality that those of us that had the capacity to digitize our collections didn't have the will. But the good news is the floodgates have been breached. Libraries, along with museums and cultural institutions, here in Serbia as well, obviously, have been moving forward with their digitization projects. So, and digitization is now in reach even for small libraries. Okay, so I'm an editor of the Code for Lib Journal. Last issue, we had a small library in Ohio write an article, I loved it, I was the editor, about how he was taking cookbooks, and digitizing them, and tying them to geographic and the history of the region for his library. This is just a little library, probably about the size of Subotice's. Digitization is available for anybody, almost anybody can do it now. And this is great. We're not just spectators, we're in the game. And it's great because we don't have to rely on giants like Google to tell us how we're going to serve our publics. We're in control of that now. But it also means some of us need to be coders and programmers, or designers, or systems librarians. We need them all at this table, right here. And all of us need to be technology librarians. Has anybody heard of Code for Lib? Who's heard of this? All right, learn today. Over 10 years ago, Code for Lib started as an email list basically for programmers and librarians, people that were working in, with, around libraries, to share knowledge technical knowledge on the things they were doing in their libraries. It caught on internationally because it was needed. We need to share what we're doing. We're librarians, it's what we do, right? There are now 9 local Code for Lib chapters outside of the US. 3 of them are in Europe. When are we starting ours? Who's in? Oh, come on. All right. Who's in? Submissions to the Code for Lib journal. We now have a journal. We've had a journal for about 6 or 7 years now. Approximately 25% of them come from the international community every issue. I think we have 1 or 2 every issue actually published. Many in the Code for Lib community, Code for Libraries, are also members of other tech groups, like Linux user groups, open source software groups, which are hosted by libraries. Which brings us to the last role I'm going to talk about today in this move to active participation in the knowledge society: hacker labs and maker spaces. So, who's done a hacker lab here? Nobody, good. Hacker labs and maker spaces are learning partnerships, okay? I highly, highly recommend them. Be the meeting place for local software groups and also programmer groups. When I lived in Florida, the libraries hosted Software Freedom Day and Hardware Hack Labs. It was, okay, I had a lot to do with that, but it was fun. And guess what? It brought people into the library. It brought mentors, it brought learners, and it brought observers, spectators, who sometimes became learners. But all of them recognized libraries are spaces as mediators in the knowledge society. Today's knowledge society is equally about access, digital access, device access, the people with the knowledge to share. And we, as technology librarians, need to step into that culture as a library space. In the United States, we've had maker spaces for several years now, and you probably are too. How many libraries have craft programs? Programs where you do crafts? 1? Come on. Nobody does crafts for children or anything? Yeah, of course you do. That's makerspace. Anything, knitting, Lego building, quilting, writing workshops, anything that creates and involves a mentor and a learner is a makerspace. They're collaborative spaces that involve mentors and learners. The technology side of it, that's just the newest part, that's all. And by the way, does anybody know what this is? This is a 3D printer. There's people here from university libraries. Your universities don't have a 3D printer?
No, we don't.
Okay, this is actually engineering faculty in Podgorica. Got this. It's slightly smaller than this. It could fit on here. Okay. The United States Embassy supports 8 American corners throughout Serbia. They're in the process of transforming some of their space into maker spaces. How many of you have been to an American corner? Awesome. Okay. I want you to look inside your bag. You have a few things from the American corners. You have a bookmark. On one side, it has some of the things they offer. On the other side is all of the locations. All of the locations. And even more important, get this upside right. Even more important, at the top is the web address for the new corners. Go to that web address. Look at those corners. Find out when they're doing programs. Find out when they're doing their makerspace type programs. Go visit them. See what they're doing. Get an idea. Ask them, how's it working out? They're there to share. They're not private spaces. One of the things we as the embassy do is support these corners to share. So come, let them into the party. Come join our party.